CJ Stroud and Stefon Diggs already getting that work in, and a prospect for the Texans, one of the most popular names, finds himself in legal trouble. But does that make him less, or more likely to be a Houston Texan?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do.
All right, we're getting down to the final stretch. We're inside 20 days. NFL draft, cannot wait. Houston Texans, not going to be on the clock for a while, but they're making some headlines and they're going viral. Quite frankly, CJ Stroud and Stefon Diggs already getting work in. CJ Stroud actually getting a little bit frustrated with Stefon Diggs. As Diggs plays quarterback for him. We'll see that. Also, a Texans prospect, potential pick with their first one, finds himself in legal trouble. How does that impact the Texans, and what exactly will they do when it comes to that? It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. Let's start with CJ Stroud getting some work in. With Stefon Diggs and Tank Dell moving around. They were actually with Sketch Reel. Be honest, not like most familiar with his work, but they were out there playing around. The funniest thing about this encounter is number one, Stefon Diggs is already out there with his teammates. Number two, just kind of the dialogue. It seemed like some just authentic backyard football. Like, remember when you used to play football in the street or something like that? And you're just getting competitive with your boys. That's kind of the vibe that it was with CJ Stroud and the guys. Couple of clips that have been uploaded. This was Sketch running a route on CJ, and this was one of the clips that the Texans actually tweeted out.
You trying to guard me? Yeah, everything you asked for. I got it. On already got it. All right now, get it going. We going. Oh, on the money. Come on, I want Sketch right quick. That's it. I don't know how I got here.
and then Tank's going out on a route for him, route with him as well. So there's a lot of videos, some pretty funny ones. This is where they make Sketch go out for a pass, and you can hear CJ kind of heckling him a little bit. This is pretty funny as well.
The slow first step there. Making a gap. What was that? Yeah, I'm done, bro. You tired? I'm gas here. You need a catch. You ain't gonna catch all day, man. Hurry up, boy. Can we get a real one? Come on, bro. Straight in. It's a cardio. Go to the end zone. He tired. Put your body on the ball. Like them hamstrings. He tired. Stop. Nah, right there. Get under it. Come on, get out. You trying to get under the belt. Right there. Where the post? Get on the field. There we go. He don't got no tracking, bro. He got no tracking. He got no tracking to do. Damn. No caliber. He got no tracking to do. That's why he play linebacker. He's tired. Oh my gosh, my man is tired. Come on, hustle up. We don't walk on the field. There you go. He's gonna pass out. We don't walk on the field. He's about to throw up. He's on his third man. This way. Hands on the head. I drink beer and play basketball sometimes. Thank you.
So they're getting their work in. A couple of things, like outside of the natural laughs of the video. One, it's good to see Diggs kind of involved with CJ and Tank. Two, I mean, I know it's a small thing, but Tank Dell's out there running around. He's running routes. I mean, it's not like full speed or anything, and he's also covering CJ Stroud. So I think that's encouraging to see Tank getting some work in and Tank moving around. So that's not really a bad thing at all. You also had one of the funnier videos, and this is where you can just kind of see the overall competitiveness of CJ Stroud. And this is actually one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite ones. Hold on, make sure I don't get. All right. Yeah. So this is going to be CJ Stroud. Stefon Diggs is actually playing quarterback. And you can kind of see how competitive CJ is. He's running routes on Tank. And he has Diggs at quarterback. And he's getting mad at Diggs for bad passes. Watch this. This is just the competitiveness in CJ Stroud that you love to see. It's it reminds me of recess.
Hey, look, he get locked up. He's playing everybody but him. It's for the cat. It's for the cat. Bro, so everything out here? No, I got you. I just
He asked him if everything's out there, and he's getting mad at him, and then Tank and CJ are lining up.
Scramble drill, 7 on 7. Hey, forever. I'm over there guarding 8 seconds. Right. You want to press safe? Oh, he's got him. What a ball. That was nasty. That was nasty. Come on. That's too easy. What you want from me? Look at that. That was a down right there.
Yeah, that was a nice little toss.
He get locked up.
That was a nice little toss from Diggs, I will say. I'll give him the credit for that. So yeah, CJ, Diggs, Tank Dell having some fun out there getting work. The most relevant thing is they seem to be getting along. There was also some heckling there. If you go and check out Sketch on YouTube as well as TikTok and all that type of stuff. So really interesting stuff in regards to Texans getting some work in with their new guys. So there you go. I don't know much about Sketch. I know the Texans are obviously pretty popular if they're getting that work in. We talked about some of the Stefon Diggs stuff, and I heard Ross Tucker do this again, and people have got to realize the way that you critique the Texans trade of Stefon Diggs is not what happens in the second round next year with that Vikings draft pick. It's what they could have gotten at 23. What they could have gotten at 23 is how you judge that pick. Because the reason they made the trade with Minnesota was to send the extra second round pick for Stefon Diggs. So I keep hearing all this. This talk about, well, the Texans, they gave up a top 50 pick. No, they took out a loan. That loan happened to be an extra second, and they made that move with Minnesota. They traded back 19 spots. So who could they have gotten at 23 is really how you're going to judge this. It's not the second round pick. That's the reason they made that trade, for better or worse, whether you think it is or not. And I noticed that there's just kind of a lack of grasp on it, because I was actually on with the great Carrington Harrison, one of the best hosts in the country and out there in Kansas City. And he was asking, well, what are the Texans going to do in the draft now that they've traded that second round pick? Well, they have every draft pick that they had before the Diggs trade and after the Minnesota trade. And they also have a second round pick next year. So that's the reality. And Pablo brings up that there's no wide receiver as good as in the draft as good as Diggs right now. I don't know whether that's true or not. I mean, I don't know if that's factual. But I do know that when you're drafting at 23 with how stacked this wide receiver group is, if you fall in love with someone, you're basically at the mercy of everyone else's decisions. So do you love Adonai Mitchell, and then Adonai Mitchell goes right in front of you? You have to trade up to get him. How much do you actually love him? Do you like someone as good at 19? So you take that extra second pick and you send it to the Bills. I think that's an interesting question. T1908 says Diggs is an energy vampire. I think you might be being sarcastic based on what we just saw, but who knows? That'll be to be determined. I just can't envision that Stefon Diggs breaks up the locker room of D'Amico Ryans. I think it's one thing to break up the locker room of Mike Zimmer, one thing to break up the locker room of Josh Allen. The other thing is we got to remember Gabe Davis wasn't happy either. So it's not like Diggs was the only unhappy receiver. Gabe Davis wasn't happy either. So do with that what you will. I think that this is a completely different situation than those. And I also think there's a certain level of respect, even if you're disgruntled, that comes with walking into a D'Amico Ryans locker room. Marianne brings up a good point. Be sure to like and subscribe in the locker room. Brandon Pimpson talking about Stefon Diggs, taking a flyer on a veteran receiver for a young QB to go along with two other young guys we drafted is a perfect scenario coming out of a rebuild. I don't know whether it is or not. I just know that the more offensive weaponry you give CJ Stroud, the better. Don't get complacent. That offense really wasn't good last year. Statistically, it was an okay offense. It wasn't great. There were times where they had highs and there were times where they had lows. There were times where they disappeared. There were times where they thrived. So it's not like you just have an offense that you want to stand on. So I would definitely be okay with that. Allen gets injured way more often than Diggs. These events may have gone in our favor again. I assume you're talking about Keenan Allen. Yeah, Keenan Allen's missed a few more games. I don't know whether the events went their favor or not, but what we do know, and maybe not getting Allen led to them being more aggressive in pursuit of Diggs, although it happened the very next day. But what we do know is that Keenan Allen was their first choice. For better or worse, Keenan Allen was their first choice. So that needs to be acknowledged. And Eric Armstead was actually their first choice before that. So the Diggs thing was a backup plan. I do find it funny. I remember there was early dialogue between our show and the morning show where it was like, well, do you want to sign this guy? Can you afford to do this? Can you afford to do that? And it was just, that was kind of like the biggest eye roll of the whole thing. Notice they brought in a receiver that makes over $20 million. They're going to pay Danielle Hunter $24 million. They've done a good job filling in some other depth spots. They're still going to have a full draft, and they still might sign a player based on a restructure. So how about that? You can sign guys and actually field the roster. That was one of the weirder things that has been said this whole offseason. Can you keep Nico and Diggs after this year? Someone got to go. I mean, you could. I mean, you can figure out a way. Again, you're going to have CJ Stroud on that rookie contract. He's not going to even be eligible for an extension until after next season. So 2 years from now. So you could maybe figure something out if Diggs wants to sign like a short-term deal and you want to fit it in that window. And then you want to pay Nico, you absolutely could. You're still going to have pretty good cap space. And a lot of these guys are still on the young deal. Now, sometimes you might have to look ahead and you might have to say, we're going to have to pay these guys, which is actually what I think is happening. And I know the Texans, and they could very well be a better football team. I think it's a coin toss right now at the very least. But there's a tendency by the national media types when it comes to the Texans to use the Cowboys and say, well, there's a new, better team in Texas. It's the Houston Texans. And they almost say it like it's a backhanded compliment, which I get because the Texans have been so ass for a while, and the Cowboys are kind of one of those teams that's a lightning rod that kind of gets people fired up. So I understand that. But I do think that, the Texans had a lot of cap space and they got a lot of guys on rookie deals. A lot of the Cowboys' lack of activity, I would say, and I'm only saying this because I think the Texans could get to this point in a year, 2 years, 3, is, yeah, we could go sign free agents, but we got Micah Parsons and we got CeeDee Lamb that are going to be guys that we're going to have to pay pretty soon. So if the Texans get to a point where, they're a year away from having to pay CJ and Will Anderson or Stingley and CJ and Will, then we might see, X amount of cap space and a lack of activity. And I think that's the other thing about Buffalo. Buffalo, when they traded for Stefon Diggs, I mean, they were this close to a Super Bowl. And you just have that little 3-year window. They had the game where they went to overtime and lost. They had the game where they needed to stop them for 19 seconds or whatever. They had the game where they missed the field goal. And now they've just had to unload everybody. Now you want to do a better job of managing the cap. You want to evaluate guys. You probably don't want to bring in Von Miller, the ghost of Von Miller, to kind of disrupt stuff. But that's eventually the point the Texans get to. And that's why this is such an interesting window that they're operating in. And you look at how O'Brien handled it, not nearly the same quality as what's going on with the Texans right now. At least we think. Other news that impacts the Texans or could impact the Texans. This is from Adam Rittenberg. I actually got a text yesterday that had details of the Tandre Sweat arrest. Now, it said 2:21 p.m. So today on the air, I assumed that he was arrested at 2:21. This is when he was actually charged. He was actually arrested at 4 a.m. Sunday morning, and he was charged at, let me see what time. I think it was like 2:21 or something like that. Let's see. Tandre Sweat. Let's see. Yeah. Tandre Sweat, however you say it. Booking number 24. So he was, booked at 2:12. So I guess he got booked a little bit later. And according to Adam Rittenberg, according to Austin Police, Texans D lineman Tandre Sweat was arrested for DWI after officers responded to a crash between an SUV and a sedan at 4:41 a.m. Sunday on I-35. Sweat drove the SUV while the driver of the sedan left on foot immediately after the crash. So I don't know what in the hell that means. But he was arrested, and now we learn that the teams have had a little bit of a concern about Tandre Sweat's partying, which he said he was open about, said it was a thing of the past, and then Tandre Sweat gets arrested 20 days before the draft. Which, my question is this, when it comes to Tandre Sweat, it was 4:21 was when he was arrested. That's what the tweet said. I think, 4:21 or whatever it was. But here's my question. How does Tandre Sweat DWI impact his draft stock and the Texas chances at drafting him? And I'm just being honest. I want you to tell me if you were a Tandre Sweat, and there are a lot of you mofos, don't go hiding now. And if you were, just tell me I was, but he was one of the most popular names that I've heard, whether it's during the show on Sports Radio 610 or whether it's here or whether it's just mingling with people in the streets. Tandre Sweat was a name that was mentioned all the time. So tell me why exactly. I thought he was getting plastered at 2:21 too. But why wouldn't you? Sunday fun day, brother. I mean, but I thought that was what happened, that he got arrested at 2:21. Why would you get plastered at 1 p.m. on Sunday? It's the best time to get plastered at that age. Absolutely. You get up, probably partying the night before, roll out of bed, beer in the shower maybe, and then Sunday fun day. Come on, man. Y'all crazy? So my question is, would you Are you in on Tandre Sweat still? Are you out? Because I got to wonder, it was already kind of a question of can he play 2 downs? But you're sitting at 42. Would you take him at 42 still? Again, same player that you thought he was. Now, maybe you can question his judgment that a young man would let this happen 20 days before the draft. I think that would be fair. I think the counter to that, though, would be, okay, maybe the message wasn't clicking with him, and maybe this, where nobody got hurt, maybe this is a situation where the young man really learns his lesson because his life and his future flash between his eyes, and he snaps out of it. So it's a real question. Like I think it's fair. The judgment, the lesson, it's a good question. So would you be willing to take him at 42? Someone says hell no. Okay. That's fair. Someone says if Fisk is gone, then hell yes. Okay. That's another name that's popular, Fisk. Tyler Olson says, I'm still a Sweat guy. This wholesome locker room could help that young man find a straight and narrow. 59 or later, it's a perfect fit. I take him at 42, but I don't think it needs to happen now. Okay, so you would take him at 59, but you'd rather not at 42. Okay. Someone says out. I would be in on him because I believe in D'Amico's guidance and the role models on the team. And I think that's an interesting thing because I do think that plays a factor in the Texans. I think that played a factor in the Diggs thing. I mean, if you didn't have a coach that you felt that could handle that along with the culture, and I think you can connect it to the players as well, and I think the players are a reflection of their coach, then maybe you wouldn't do it. But Tandre Sweat, yes. Olson says 59 or later. Okay. Not if Byron Murphy's still available. You think Byron Murphy's going to be available at 42? Come on, man. Dusto says Max Crosby had a drug problem, and look at him now. Just some young bucks making young buck decisions. Yeah, Max had an alcohol problem. And I'm sure there was a little bit sprinkled in there. But Max actually went on his own. He never had any real moments or anything like that. And I don't know how much of a concern it was coming out or not. Little fun fact, Max Crosby was one of my mom's last students. She actually taught Max Crosby. I don't even know that he was a stud at the time. The more you know. Bobby says hell no. H and Rob say yes, they would take him. Too many questions at 42, says Wes. Joe Blue says 59. Victor says too many red flags for me. Where's the line though? Like, is it an absolute? Like, what if he falls to the third? What if he falls to the third and he's sitting there at 123? Because I do think there's a certain point where it's like, okay, if you are out on him, unless you just think it's the worst thing in the world, I'm not sitting here like saying that, you know, if something like the worst had happened or whatever, that you draw the line somewhere. But like at 8, like what if he's sitting there at 86? What if he's sitting there at 86 in the third? What if he's at 123 in the fourth, which I think would be crazy. 86 in the third, you're telling me you wouldn't take him? 100%. Joe says 42 is too high. See, some people were saying that even before. And that's the problem with him. You know, this isn't like Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors or Caleb Williams. This is a guy. The problem for Sweat is even if this had never happened, he was still one of the more polarizing guys because you have that 2-down talk. You have the weight talk. By the way, if you like to take down 18, 30 beers, whatever, it's probably not a good recipe to keep the weight off. I will say that. Someone says if he drops to the third, okay. I think 42 was too high before. I was already hoping he fell to 59. So 59, you would be looking at that 86, take him, scoop him up in the third, yes at 86. So 86 seems to be the hot spot now for Sweat. And I think that's I don't think that's terrible. Brandon's getting greedy. He's going fourth. I mean, I don't think that will happen. I don't think that's gonna work. So if you don't want him at 42, who do you want? It seems like Chop Robinson out of Penn State is a big talking point. I mean, what do you want to do with Chop Robinson? Or is it just going to be a rotation? Or are you just going 3-man rotation? You're trying to put together a crazy rotation. Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M is a popular name. Would D'Amico want his linebacker? Xavier Leggett's country ass. Some people want him. There's an interesting disconnect between who some want. I think the wide receiver thing has kind of died. I saw Stutz asked it earlier today. Who do you want at 42? Ennis Rakestraw. Okay. I mean, he would bring you some grit. I see Brown Chubby Bear says TJ Tampa. Okay, bud. Edgerrin Cooper. Michael Hall's being thrown out at 59. McConkey's being thrown out. I don't know that he's going to be there. That would be interesting if they decided to go another receiver. You can imagine how much the internet's going to break if they drafted another receiver at 42. Would actually be pretty crazy. But there's a lot of names. Stute says wide receiver is definitely alive at 42. Okay, we'll see. I think it's a long shot at this point, but we shall see. Do you think they trade one of the second round picks for what? Trade what? Back? Up? What are we talking as far as trading? Someone says Sanders from Texas. I like him. I don't know if they do. They might look at him as too much to like not really the blocker that they seem to crave. I think he's a better player than Brevin Jordan as far as being a complete tight end, total tight end. Might be a better receiver too. Brevin was a running back for a lot of his career. I'm not saying Brevin Jordan's useless, but I'm saying if you just want a traditional tight end or a guy that you can put in the slot and he can make plays in the pass game, Sanders, it's not even close with Brevin Jordan. Brevin Jordan's got the jets. Brevin Jordan can make plays. You can scheme Brevin Jordan open, but he's not the go up and get it playmaking receiver that Sanders is. It's not even close at all. Now, I don't know how much they like him, but it'll be interesting to see how that is. But that's the news. It's kind of a light-ish day. Texans going viral. Stefon Diggs getting his work in. And Tandre Sweat, already one of the more polarizing picks, already a popular one. Tandre Sweat, he's found himself in trouble. And it seems like now there's kind of a line in the sand with Tandre Sweat. Seems like the second, third kind of the range. Is that what we're saying? What are we going to say when it comes to picks 1, 2, and 3 of the Texans that they have? We're going to say 2.5, 2.75. We lean more 2.75 if we had to pick on the average. I'd say probably 2.75. So somewhere in that 2-3 range is where people appear to be open. Appreciate y'all for coming through. It's fun times. Be sure to go out to Daily Sports Club on the Saturday, the final day of the draft. We're going to be out there. It's going to be fun. We want you out there. I told 713 Sports, me, Stutz, Figgy Fig are hosting it. It's a really good place. Day 1, the Texans weren't going to be picking. Day 2, they have their draft party. So you're going to be more zoned up. Day 3, you get to talk about what happened on day 2. I think the best thing in life as a kid growing up was getting to talk about the big sports event the day after. So you get to do that and you get to enjoy another one. And oh, by the way, it's Saturday, so you likely ain't got to work. So come through to Daily Sports Club. We'll give you more information as it goes on. They got the parking. We're going to have the drink specials. Let's freaking get it. H-Town TD coming through last minute. Who are the front runners for cornerback at number 2 and nickel corner between Miles Bryant, CJ Henderson, Okudah, Lonnie Johnson, Desmond King, or 2024 cornerback draft pick? If they draft someone, it's going to be because they like him as a cornerback too, especially if it's with that first pick or the other pick in the second round. If they use a first or second on a corner, then chances are that they think he's going to be good enough to start or good enough to be in the rotation. He's going to be their long-term plan perhaps. Right now, the front runner for CB2, it's going to be Okudah. Okudah has played some decent football. It's been inconsistent. But Okudah, if you're asking me for the front runner, with nickel corner, I think that's going to be one of the most intriguing battles in camp. And I think they'll let it play out between Miles Bryant and Des King. Last year, Des King, they released him after camp. Seems like he's kind of established himself now as kind of one of the great guys. But I would say that's going to be a battle. Lonnie Johnson, I don't know that Lonnie Johnson, I mean, he's going to have a good camp, I think, to 100% make the squad, but I think they're going to look at him more as a special team / reserve safety type of dude. Noah Brown is underrated, especially with where he is. I, as a number 2, don't know about that, but especially with where he is. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Subscribe, like, ride along. This is fun, man. Daily Sports Club, the final Saturday of the draft. We're going to have the sound on too throughout. And a lot of people that you see on YouTube going to be out there. We would love for you to be as well. Subscribe, like, ride along. And most importantly, always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Happy teenish draft week.
In the headlock, localized every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too plugged in, daily digital on YouTube. We got takes for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up, we number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room.